a full quorum or anything for it. I think we have a quorum anyway, so we're good.
Good.
Okay. Well, we'll call the meeting to order. I'm Ken Foote, the chair, and we're doing this on Zoom. We'll fumble our way through it. First off, I'd like to have everybody go around and introduce themselves and what their relationship is to the GRAC committee. And why don't we start with you, Kathy Christie?
Okay, Kathy Christie, member of the committee, public member.
And next is on my list of pictures is Pak. Is that your name?
Paku, is it?
Oh,
Paku?
sorry.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Hi, everyone. My name is Paku, and I'm with Solid Waste and Recycling, Washington County.
Tom?
Thomas Eggleston, Solid Waste and Recycling Division Manager and non-voting member of the GRAC. And real quick, after we do roll call, Paku, do you have some intro slides that you would read for
I
us?
do. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So let's finish our intros real quick and then we'll do that.
Yeah.
And Jordan, you're muted right now, so unmute and then
Hi, Jordan Henderson with Marina and Company. We're working with Washington County Solid Waste and Recycling right now on something you'll hear about in a few minutes.
Sue Shade. Unmute.
Sue Shade, public member, Washington County, an incorporated Washington County resident.
Kathy Folsom.
Hi, Kathy Folsom, Solid Waste and Recycling staff.
Is that everybody? Did I miss anybody?
I'm Vinod Singh. I'm an industry member. I work at Far West Recycling, and I live in unincorporated Washington County also.
And Beth
And Beth Vargas Duncan, industry member.
and Courtney, you could introduce yourself too. Thanks.
Yeah, sure. I'm Courtney, and I'm also with Marine and Company, and we'll be presenting today about a project that we're working on.
Great, thank you. Now, let's turn it over to Tom.
Yeah, Paku, do you want to go ahead and do the opening slides and then I'll
Yes.
take on with the updates?
Alrighty. Let me go ahead and share the intro slides. Are you able to see? Can you guys see the intro slides?
Yes.
Okay, great. So today, welcome to the October 14, 2021 Garbage and Recycling Advisory Committee meeting. My name is Paku Vang, and I am your moderator for tonight. Just some quick logistics. You should be able to connect to this meeting via audio, and the meeting is being recorded. It will be posted to our website, Solid Waste and Recycling, 7 days within today or a week from today. You can also use the Q&A or the raise your hand function if you have any questions or comments. And then if you experience any technical difficulty, you can use this link to ask for support. Bylaws, reminder, just keep in mind that only the committee chair may recognize the public attendee and that there are 2 designated time slots on the agenda for public comments. I think that's it. Back to you, Ken.
Thank you. And now I have to find.
Thanks, Paku. Do you want me to do the update, Ken?
Yes, please.
Cool. All right, so few things for this updates. I'm trying to figure out where I'm looking at too. All right. So a couple updates. New member appointments are moving through the process for the advisory committee. The Board of Commissioners held a work session this Tuesday, and we presented 3 nominees to the board that staff recommended for appointment. The board favorably accepted those recommendations, and we've scheduled a meeting for October 26th for that actual appointment to happen. I can share, I'll share the names of them because it's all public information anyway. It's on the website. So we had recommended Peter Pastors for appointment, and Pete is a current employee of DEQ actually, and lives in unincorporated Washington County. He works in the Household Hazardous Waste Division, and he is very interested in working with the committee and with the community on the SB 582 implementation and how the county will kind of respond and react to those things. So we look forward to Pete joining the committee if he's appointed on the 26th by the board, and we anticipate he will be. The other candidates, Myra Hernandez is another person who will be submitted for appointment on the 26th. Myra works with Adelante Mujeres, is an organization here in Western Washington County that does support for women in the Latino community and the Latino community generally. Myra works in a food nutrition program, and she's really excited. She also volunteers with a Promotores team coordinated through Centro Cultural, so she has some experience with the Master Recycler programs and some really good experience in solid waste. And our third person we have recommended for appointment is Hannah Carlson. Yes, Hannah Carlson, I'm sorry. Hannah is a Portland State University student studying public administration, and she lives in Hillsborough and lives in a multifamily community and is excited about pursuing work in the environmental and sustainability and garbage field. And so she's maybe a good asset to kind of bring in some of that student perspective as well. So we're looking forward to those folks joining the committee. And I will go ahead and lead in for Ken. And I wanted to say from staff perspective, I would wanted to have a big appreciation for Beth and Carl, who will be who's actually technically his terms have ended in March of this year, 2021. And so graciously, Beth, you have stuck with us through the last couple months, and we really appreciate that work. And I know Carl has been around too. I know he has had some challenges attending some of these recent meetings, but we really appreciate your service and sticking with us. And I think Ken wanted to say some nice things too. So I'll pass it back to Ken. I
agree. And I will miss the input from the industry members who have the history and the knowledge and have been deeply involved in it at a much more personal level for probably all of their adult lives. And so it will be sad because they lend a degree of wisdom and understanding of what's going on that takes a while for the non-industry members to come up to speed. Typically, in my opinion, about 2 or 3 years. So thank you very much for being on the committee and joining us. And Beth, is anybody as what representative for the Haulers Association, are you planning to continue attending, or is the Haulers Association going to appoint somebody to come and attend these meetings and raise their hand when they need to?
I will continue to attend these meetings and raise my hand as an audience member as permitted and be glad to participate as appropriate. And thank you for allowing me to continue to serve on the committee for all of this time. It's been great working with everyone here and getting to know folks better. It was a lot more fun when we could meet in person, but that goes without saying, right?
Right, I agree.
And we'll be back someday, hopefully, at least partially. Break bread that first meeting, maybe.
That would be great. So program updates.
Yeah, sorry, I'll keep going. So another update, Recology, the franchise agreement with Recology. Your committee took a motion on recommendation to the board earlier this summer, late spring. That agreement has finally gone through all of the crossing T's and dotting I's processes and has been fully executed now. So their new agreement is fully in place with the county, and it's in place until 2026, and we'll be back to review it again in late 2025, moving into 2026. We recently became aware of, and I thanks to Kristen Leichner and actually Carrie from Walker Garbage Service reached out to us to let us know that they have been notified that the emergency rental assistance program that the state of Oregon is implementing actually includes garbage bills as a eligible utility for assistance. So community members that are in the emergency rental assistance program are also eligible to have their garbage and recycling bills included in that assistance plan. I know we've been trying to work with Community Action to get some a little bit additional information, but they're really busy trying to get those funds out the door. So we're encouraged to see some signals that the utility assistance programs and the emergency assistance programs are starting to recognize garbage and recycling as an essential utility for folks living in homes and being able to get rid of their garbage. So that's really promising signals, I think, to see that coming through a state program. Another one related to Recology, Metro and Recology are working on a designated facility agreement that is close to being finalized. It's kind of a wonky thing, a DFA. A DFA is an agreement between Metro and a facility that allows that facility to essentially participate in the regional solid waste facility system without, even though it's outside of the Metro region. So North Plains Recology is technically outside of the Metro boundaries. And if Metro enters into a designated facility agreement with Recology, they're able to accept waste from within the Metro boundary without additional authorizations and approvals. So that is significant for programs on the west side, particularly because it's the closest facility that accepts residential food waste. And all of the cities right now that are currently sending residential materials to that facility have had to apply for special permissions from Metro in order to send tonnage outside of the Metro region. So if that facility comes into the regional facility footprint with a DFA, it kind of opens the doors up a little bit easier for more communities to deliver their residential food waste materials to that facility. Another update, the education outreach team has been busy kind of preparing for a couple upcoming rollouts of requirements and mandates. So the business food scraps requirement, which requires businesses over a certain size to collect food waste separate from garbage, has been delayed multiple times because of COVID, and the current date that it's planned to kick off is March 31st, 2022. So still a little ways away, but it's coming quicker. It'll come quicker than we realize it. So the team is getting ready to check with businesses that had been composting before the pandemic, making sure they still have services if they want to get their services back going, if they need any assistance with that, and kind of just preparing their implementation plans for that rollout in 2022. Also in early 2022, staff are planning to initiate contact with property managers at multifamily properties that might be affected by the new minimum service standards that were included in the most recent rule update. You may recall there was some new standards per unit. Multifamily properties have to have a certain level of garbage service per unit. That standard is actually a requirement of the collection companies, but it's a county requirement. And so county staff are going to work with the haulers to take the lead on notifying any property owners that are under that service threshold, so that we can explain the program and explain our technical assistance and work with the haulers to bring their service up to those standards. Another update, so the solid waste recycling division is going to be kicking off a strategic planning process at the end of this year, likely in December through April, May of 2022. It's not a big, huge visioning process. We have a lot of plans that we respond to, the regional waste plan, which we've learned a lot about recently on this committee. We also respond to Oregon State law, the Opportunity to Recycle Act. We have a health and human services strategic plan, some county strategic plans and equity plans. There's so many plans telling us what to do that there's too much to do, and we can't possibly do it all with 15 staff. So we're going to spend some time as a division kind of sifting through all of the priorities and setting priorities on all of the actions that we have on our table, basically served to us, and trying to figure out what we're going to put on our plates over the next 3 to 5 years. We'll definitely engage the committee in that process. There'll be a couple touch points for us to reach out to you all and see if there's any input, if you think we're hitting the mark from what you expect we should be working on, or if we're missing something that you think we should be focusing on a little bit more as well. And then finally, just kind of a heads up, which is not very exciting and fun, but I got my official email today that budget season has started, which is scary and crazy. It's still the month 10, and the budgets doesn't start till month 7 of next year. So we have 9 months to prepare our budgets and put them through the process. And so that's a long process that staff work through, and kind of preparing priorities and identifying budget priorities and setting them up. We are also I'm going to be doing some higher level prioritization on budgeting with the health department, the Health and Human Services Department, and we're hoping to kind of share some of those budget priorities with our advisory committees throughout the Health and Human Services Department, and see if we can receive any input and feedback from our advisory bodies across the department on those budget priorities, to see if our advisory groups think we're hitting the mark, or if we're missing something, or if we should be looking in other directions as well. That also dovetails into rate review season, which of course starts up a large body of work in early next year, which Aaron will be leading and working with Marina and Company, our partners on that process. So that is what I got. If there's any questions about any of that, I'd be happy to try to answer them.
I don't have a question. I was just gonna let Kathy Christie know you're off mute.
Oh, I am? You can't
Yeah,
hear me?
you're the screen keep. I just noticed because the screen keeps popping up with your name for me.
Oh, okay.
At my house, I have to be careful about being off mute. So
Okay, got it.
Oh, I think I accidentally just muted you, Kathy, because I clicked on your name, but sorry, I don't know if I can unmute you. If you need to, I think,
Okay.
there you go. You know how to do it. You got it.
Am I back? Am
Yeah,
I
you're back. Yeah, you're back.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for muting me. That's good.
Any questions on the updates? Nope. All right. We have the oral communication time, Ken. If
Mm.
you're muted, Ken.
There we go. Has anybody signed up for oral communication?
We don't have anyone signed up as far as I know, and if there's anyone in the attendee pool that would like to raise their hand to be recognized, please do so.
Okay, let's move right along to, let's see, the rate analysis.
Yeah, presentation from Marina and Company. So I will introduce Jordan and Courtney for joining us. Thank you, Jordan and Courtney, for joining us. Marina and Company, County has engaged with Marina and Company, who is our regular rate review consultants, to help us do some work on analyzing options and opportunities for us to incorporate more equity considerations into our solid waste rate setting process. This is largely driven by Action 14.4 in the Regional Waste Plan, which is encourages local governments to implement a low income rate program. We've kind of interpreted that a little bit more to be considering equity considerations in general and not just focusing on low income, but it does look like low income programs are a large, the most obvious way to kind of achieve some of our goals and outcomes. So I'm just going to pass it off to Jordan before I butcher their presentation, and let them take it off, and then we can ask any questions from there.
Yeah, and I'm glad to be here. I'm really excited to get some of your feedback, but I'm going to hand the presentation off to Courtney so I don't butcher it. So I'll be here to answer questions and help fill in gaps. I think you're still muted, Courtney.
Can you see my screen okay?
Yeah.
Perfect. Alrighty. Well, as Tom, thanks for having us, by the way, to start off. Thanks for having us. As Tom mentioned, we have been working with the county since about June, July this year to identify some ways to incorporate equity into the solid waste rate system. And also, as Tom mentioned, the kind of started this conversation. The start of the conversation came from the Metro Initiative 14.4 to implement the low income rate assistance program. That is part of goal number 14, I believe. 14 to adopt rates for all services that are reasonable, responsive to user economic needs, and regionally consistent and well understood. But on top of that, part of that was just coming from the county's
interest in pursuing diversity, equity, and inclusion goals to reduce barriers to solid waste for underserved and underrepresented populations, to reduce financial barriers, and all of that is to try to move the needle forward in providing equitable solid waste services to the community. And we thought it was important to reiterate these objectives and goals because Washington County is sort of leading the charge in developing a program like this. And so it's kind of a big undertaking, and it's important to reiterate why we're doing this and the motivations behind it so that we can achieve those objectives. So far to date, we have met with the Washington County Solid Waste staff to understand the county's vision and goals for the program, as well as met with community action to understand some of those lessons learned that if you can remember the sort of pilot program that the county did to distribute the CARES Act funding. So there's some opportunities to learn from that experience to see what went well, what could have been improved in this next round of this next program. We also wanted to understand from the community action perspective how they could potentially be a partner in this moving forward. And then we also met with some representatives from the Haulers Association, including Beth, thank you, so that we could also, again, learn from those lessons from the CARES Act funding distribution, as well as understand some of the Haulers' perspectives on what are the concerns moving forward with an equity, a low income rate program moving forward, as well as actually what are the concerns of implementation and what that actually looks like moving forward for them. So we took all that information, what we call from the listening phase. We took all that information and compiled a sort of list of criteria of what it means to actually successfully implement this program and what it means to actually realize those objectives that we talked about at the beginning. And so we took what we heard, we reported it back to the county staff and did a work session to prioritize some of those criteria. And from there, we identified what we call key research questions. And these are critical questions that need to be answered before we can actually successfully implement a program. And so to touch on those key questions, here's kind of where we wanted to get the committee's feedback and support in answering some of these questions and get your initial thoughts on the consideration of these questions. But some of those are like, what amount of financial assistance is enough to have a positive impact on the participants? What does it mean, like with all this work that we're doing, is it actually going to add value to those audiences that we're trying to support? What's the appropriate balance between the value to the community that we're trying to assist versus the impact to the rest of the ratepayers within the system? How do we reach the targeted communities and address the structural barriers inherent to the current system? Barriers such as application processes, technology barriers, language barriers. How do we get away from those and actually be effective in implementing this program? How do we leverage existing and potential future program partners to efficiently administer the program, as well as be effective in how we outreach and actually reach those targeted communities? How can we model the program to be self-funded? How can we make sure that it is feasibly implemented from a financial perspective? And what services should be included? So I want to take a moment here to kind of touch on these questions and see if there's any initial feedback from the community on or questions regarding these. And we can also come back, but go ahead.
Here we go. Have you done any work on the first item there? What amount of financial assistance is enough? Or I suppose the flip side is who would qualify for to become an eligible participant?
Yeah, that's a really good question, Ken. And it's something we're struggling with or trying to define. So when we're thinking about what amount of financial assistance is enough, there's a variety of different approaches. I've seen 25% discount for seniors in some programs. I've seen a 50% discount for people under a certain income level for some programs. I've seen Hillsborough has a city managed fiber optics, high-speed internet, and it's like a 85% reduction for those that qualify for the low income program. So I think the question we need to ask ourselves and receive feedback on is how much should what's the range that would actually provide benefit and value to those that are being supported? So if it's a every other month bill that's $60 and it's 10% off, it's $6 every 2 months, it's probably not going to really do much to relieve those consumers. 50% might, 30, half off the garbage bill might move the needle. But then you have to think about how many folks would qualify in that bracket, and what's the income level threshold, how many qualify, if 20 or 30% take advantage of the qualification, how much does that cost the system, and how much does that raise the rates on the rest of the system? So that's kind of the balance in the equation that we're trying to work through. So we're trying to identify some target discount figures, or what is the right financial amount of financial assistance or discount to help somebody and move the needle on some of that stuff.
So, first off, I want to comment that a blanket discount to seniors is not appropriate. We seniors, by and large, are not hurting that badly. And since our kids have all finished college and what have you, I can afford the garbage. And so, I'm never going to turn money down if somebody's out there handing it out of a bucket. But the next one is, do we have any kind of means testing or testing? Does the Hillsborough program or any of them have something other than just raw income? Because I would have a form that asks if they drank Starbucks coffee or if they smoke cigarettes, and then anybody who did either of those two things wouldn't qualify until they quit, because
for vaccine, right? You have to have a COVID shot.
I'm not sure.
Or the health department. Come on now. I'm kidding.
You can, no, that's fine. You can put anything in there you want. But my point is that I think that one of the things we have to do as essentially guardians of the public purse is make sure that we're not going to turn up in some newspaper columnist column about people who are already earning over $100,000 a year getting help with a $20 a month bill. So I just want to make sure that in the plethora of things that you consider about qualifying someone as an eligible participant, we not include everybody. It's the blanket can be too big. So that was the only thing that leaped out at me as I read through them originally.
Thanks, Ken. Beth, I see you got your hand up. And I see you, Sandra, and I see you, Vinod, too. So Beth, do you want to go? Then we'll do Sandra, then Vinod, if that works for everybody.
Sure, thank you. So it may be a little bit related to the second to last question mark line there, but I think it would be helpful to also consider what existing mechanisms there are and how to mesh the program as much as possible to gain those efficiencies with our existing reporting structure or other items that are in place.
Are you talking about programs that the solid waste system manages, or programs like other benefit or aid programs like Community Action, for example, manages?
Sure, but I was thinking more along the lines of the garbage haulers, data billing systems, rather than creating something in addition, as much as it can be folded into an activity that we already provide, that would be helpful for efficiency and keeping costs down and timeliness.
An example of an activity that you're thinking of that?
Not really. I'm trying to think of what we did with the bill pay assistance program. All I can think of is I believe we used messaging, on bills or other existing. So rather than creating something new, allow folks to use their websites or bills, make the message fit what we have rather than creating a new piece,
Thank you.
at least on the hauler side, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Sandra?
Do you know how many consumers this is affecting? Are you just going by seniors and a certain low income, or is there an actual maybe percent of delinquent customers that this is being based on?
Yeah, so that it's not based on anything yet. That's what we're trying to figure out really with this conversations. Seniors is not necessarily something we're looking at. That was just an example I shared of one we've seen out there. We're not necessarily looking at age as a qualifying factor. I think income is the most likely qualifying factor because it's an objective factor and it's something that folks can use to demonstrate the need that potentially for a program like this. And that's traditionally how assistance programs are administered. What that threshold is I think dependent on a lot of things. How many folks are eligible, how many folks we want to make eligible. There's, I think the program we had last time with CARES Act funding was 80% of area median income was the threshold cutoff. So anyone that made up to 80% of the area median income was eligible for the service. So there's some of those analyses we were working on and trying to identify how much, if it's a 50% reduction and it's 80% area median income is the eligibility threshold and 25% of those that are eligible apply for it, how much does that cost? And then how much does that impact the rest of the system in cost? And so those are some of those things we're looking at. We need to kind of pencil out. I don't know if you'd add anything, Jordan and Courtney.
Yeah, I'll add a little bit to that. We're really early on in the process, and Courtney kind of described what we've done today, and it really is kind of just that. It's thinking aspirationally about the program, trying to understand what we don't know, and that's kind of where you're seeing some of these questions come up. And so a major next step for us is trying to develop a better understanding of who the community is that is being served, what are the demographics of that community, and then looking at some of the details of the financials to be able to build some sort of an analysis tool where we can run some scenarios based on what we've heard from other programs, what we're seeing in terms of need, draw the line, the eligibility line at different levels and see what the impact is. And that'll help inform some of our questions about can this pay for itself? Is it feasible? Do we reach enough people? Some of those questions that Tom asked. So a lot of that work is yet to be done. It's good to hear your thoughts on what other questions or what things we should be looking for.
Maybe look at how many people are actually delinquent and go from there. Also, would this be for a whole year or a certain period of time, like 6 months, and then reevaluate it? There may be someone who says, hey, I'm going to be in the hospital for 3 months. I need assistance for just 3 months too. I don't know, something like that.
Yeah. Yeah, those are the program that we did with CARES Act funding was the type of program that for what you're describing, Sandra. It's like a temporary need. And so you apply for relief from what you owe, and the assistance program pays off your past due balance. What we're more interested in really in exploring is kind of a more sustainable long-term program that you obviously would have to verify a certain period of time. I think the city of Hillsborough, for example, requires annual verification. And so once you verify qualification for the program, you're in for a year. And then next year you have to re-qualify to get into the program again. So those are a little bit different models. I think both have their pros and cons, but we, I think in terms of developing a more sustainable or more equitable system going forward, we're thinking more about the ongoing assistance versus kind of the spot assistance that is what's being met with a lot of the programs out there, like the emergency rent assistance program.
So, Tom, is there an equivalent program for electricity or gas? The other two major utilities are the two major utilities in our area who probably have had to address this problem some way.
I don't I don't think PGE and Northwest Natural have a program like this. They do not. They do fund Oregon Energy Assistance Program, which is like one of the main kind of mainstream. If you can't heat your home, you apply for assistance and they help you through like a community action agency, but they do not have a like a low income eligibility enrollment program. The ones we know of live locally are Hillsboro's Hi-Fi, and then actually TriMet has a low income fare program that you can apply for and become eligible for a low income fare, and it's a 50% off or half off for bus fares through TriMet.
And they have the same thing for seniors, which is what first
The honored
alerted me.
citizens is what we call them, right?
Right. But it struck me as I looked at this impoverished family with 5 kids having to pay to get on the bus, and I'm only paying next to nothing. And so it's just a public policy thing that has always rubbed me the wrong way.
Yeah, thanks. And Vinod, I think you had a question. Then Sue, I see your hand too.
Well, I did. The good thing about waiting is you guys already taken most of the meat out of what I was asking. So thank you, Sandra and Ken. So I'm assuming that you're going to do some sort of modeling of estimated costs. That's what I got from that. And then, are you going to pre-fund this, or is it going to be reactionary? Are you going to say, hey, it's going to probably cost this much, so we're going to build that into the rates early and then adjust it, or are you going to try to just figure it out on the run?
Those are good questions. I think the vision I would have is it needs to be self-funded. So it's not, the haulers don't pay for it. The county can't pay for it. The ratepayers are who pay for it. And that's how the system is funded generally. So I think if there was a new program, it would be implemented at the same time as a rate adjustment that would pay for it. So there might need to be some seed funding up front to get things going, to initiate contracts if there's a third-party administrator of it. But at some point in time, it would, I think if it was implemented, it would result in a rate increase, just like we went through a rate increase for the general rate base. So everybody would start paying more, and then folks would start applying for that assistance program, and that would kind of roll out that way.
Yeah, so sort of chicken and the egg, because if you raise the rate, then those people are affected more, but you need to get the rate, the fund back up there. So there's kind of a delicate dance in there to make sure everybody's whole, and everybody who needs help is helped. And so.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's a good question.
Great question.
Sue, you want to go ahead?
I was just going to say that, well, maybe we could get a kicker, on those, right, on extra money that was collected. But my real question was having to do with if this program, if you're thinking this would be applied to like multi-unit housing, or would it only be applied to single family residences? How does that work into the picture?
Yeah, it's another really good question. One we kind of have grappled with, and don't have a simple or easy answer to. The the customer that pays the bill in a multifamily setting is predominantly usually the property manager. So we question whether we would have the authority as a local solid waste agency to say, hey, your property qualifies for a 50% discount. You shall pass those cost savings on to your customers. That relationship between the property manager and the renter is not something we have control and authority over. And so I think it's a little bit, I don't know if that's a mechanism we can use to say discount the service paid by the customer, assuming they're going to discount the rent to the renters. I don't think that's something we have authority to do. So that's probably not feasible for the program. The direct payee, so the direct customer, is going to be the easiest, and I think definitely the first approach, and that predominantly will be folks in townhomes or single family homes, and that does miss a large part of the audience we're trying to support, the lower income audience that is less likely to reside in a single family home or a home that receives direct service. Go ahead, Sue. You're muted too.
I was just gonna say that answers my question and that makes more sense to me. It would be very difficult, I think, to get any savings passed on to multi-unit housing, so.
Yeah, it's interesting. And if anyone has ideas, we would love to hear them, because I think that's a really important question that we have been trying to think through and crack.
Well, just spitballing, I mean, maybe there's an audit process or something if an apartment's doing it, that they have to show, hey, this is the current rent, we're gonna knock $10 off of everybody's.
Yeah, maybe it's a voluntary commitment. And if they don't agree
Yeah.
to it, they don't get to enroll in the program.
Just
Yeah.
kind of, just spitball it.
And so, Tom, I want to ask this question because you mentioned it. Do you think that a program like this would be facilitated by a company other than the county then?
Yeah, I think it would make the most sense for the county not to administer it. We don't have experience administering programs like these, and we probably would be an expensive route to administer it. There's a lot of social service agencies that do assistance programs currently, and Community Action is one that administered the program for the CARES Act funding. But I think that's a good conversation. It doesn't mean that they have to be the agency that would administer something like this. We're would be interested in maybe when things get fleshed out a little bit more and we have a real proposal, we'd like to approach multiple community-based organizations, and particularly those that serve communities of color that might not be enrolled in other programs like traditional energy assistance or other programs that could help us kind of drive the recruitment and the enrollment processes into the communities that we're trying to help serve. Maybe it's a partnership, maybe it's multiple agencies, maybe it's not just a single agency that kind of can administer it too. So I think there's different ways to look at it. And the cost of that is a part of it too. How much is the administration of it? Because that has to be paid for as well.
I provide a little background on multifamily units. I'm treasurer for our HOA, for our condo association. And we're only paying just over $15 per unit per month for our combined garbage service. On the flip side, Pride only has to make 2 stops because they're picking up dumpsters, not individual garbage. So, and the flip side again is that every resident here has to walk to one of the 2 sites and put their garbage in the dumpster. But I know that the HOA does not have the staff to sit down and figure out who qualified us for some kind of discount and figure out how to apply it back to those individual people. We're just not equipped to do something like that. And I suspect all property managers face the same problem.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point too, Ken. Like eligibility of the individual tenants versus eligibility of the property or the unit. We could look at percent of housing that's designated low income housing or Section 8 housing, or if they accept housing vouchers from the county's housing program, then they might be eligible as a complex if a certain percent of the units are those. There's things to look into like that, I think, is another opportunity, but you're right. It wouldn't be feasible to save, $7 a month to go through every single tenant and determine whether they're financially eligible for that type of assistance program.
Right.
Yeah. Any other questions or comments or thoughts on these key questions that Courtney shared with us?
All right, well, that great feedback. I appreciate all those questions. And now that, so we'll be focusing on answering these questions as well as those that you provided to us, I think. And if any other questions come up as you're thinking about this, please feel free to reach out to Tom or Jordan and I. We can provide our contact information to kind of contribute. If you want to contribute additional feedback to our project. So moving on, next steps, we've kind of at this point refined a lot of what we've heard, but now adding additional your feedback into our requirements. We'll also be meeting with potential program partners as well as other regional partners to see what else is being done currently, such as the Hillsborough Highlight program or High Five program, as well as potential other partners such as Clean Water Services or other cities to see what other cities are doing or agencies are doing in this realm, as well as identify opportunities to partner. And then we'll be doing research in analysis to answer those questions on the previous slide. And a lot of that will be figuring out what are some of the rate impacts, what would be projecting some of the rate impacts, projecting impacts to haulers and as well as the system as a whole. So we'll focus on answering those key questions and then use those results to develop hopefully a program, a solution and on how to implement that low-income program rate program. Tom, did you want to talk the timeline? I know that was something we.
Yeah, thanks, Courtney. So we've been kind of strategizing on a timeline for this, and if we do have a proposal, when is the appropriate time to present that or prepare that for consideration? 2022's rate review seems like it's coming at us like a freight train. 2023 rate review seems like it's really far away, and it's kind of not with enough urgency for us to sit on it for a year and a half more. So we're kind of feeling like if we have a sound kind of proposal or have some findings that we could share and have a proposal for consideration in the rate review season coming up. So it'd be kind of in the May timeframe. That is something we are kind of striving towards. So we'd welcome feedback on that too, if folks think that's too fast. And I'd also be interested to know what, if the committee is interested in kind of how engaged you are in want to be in the process, if you want us to check in with you as we go through some of these analyses, or if you're just mostly interested in kind of evaluating a proposal that is brought forward after we've made some proposals going to adjust rates and create a program.
Okay. Thank you, Jordan, and oh gosh, memory block again. Anyway, thanks both of you for coming out and presenting to us, and we'll look forward to hearing more. Next
real quick, any feedback or on how many touch points you all want, or what kind of engagement you want? And also if that timeline sounds reasonable or if it sounds unreasonable, we would welcome that. Sue, I see every hand, Sue.
Yeah, I do have my hand up. I guess I'm asking the question, and Courtney, I think you addressed this at the beginning, but I'm refreshing my memory. So this is one of the efforts that the county is doing to meet the point 14 of the Metro Regional Waste Plan. So this is one of the efforts that the county is doing. With that, I think, Tom, I would be really interested in, getting updates on how things are going with this effort. I don't know, at least quarterly. I don't know how long it will take, but I think I would find it very interesting to hear the steps we are moving toward.
And maybe we can plan to be back in January.
I'm sorry?
Maybe we can plan to come back in January. Bring Jordan and Courtney back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Nod. See your hand. Thanks, Sue.
Yeah, I quarterly sounds fine. But also maybe if there's movement on something or some new development. And somebody asked this, I think, but what are other cities and counties doing to meet that? Are you doing research alone, or is there other stuff going on around us also?
Yeah, it's a good question too. So we do have a regional kind of So I'm not gonna call it a work group. It's not, we don't define it. We don't have bylaws and we're not, we're not making it too official. But we are meeting quarterly with regional partners that are all working on the same effort. And most of them are not as far along as we are. And a lot of them are looking at the research we're doing and the work we're doing to inform some of their processes and their practices. One of the things we heard pretty loud and clear from engagement with the Hauler Association members is kind of some level of consistency across the region, so that Waste Management is not implementing 6 radically different programs in different cities across the metro area. And that makes a lot of sense. But for us, I think we're in a position right now where we're kind of leading the charge. And so there's no other programs for us to be mimicking or working with. And I think we're really in front of the pack. So we feel it's an opportunity for us to kind of lead on that and maybe set the tone and set the course. Obviously working with our regional partners and receiving feedback with them along the ways, but we don't have any current kind of limitations that we've identified as other people are looking at something radically different than what we are.
Yeah, I think that's important to note because it goes with that consistency of service piece. Yeah.
Absolutely. Something we always strive for, but sometimes struggle to achieve. Thanks, Vinod.
Any other hands up? Okay.
Yeah, just real quick, thanks again for having us. And if anything else comes up, any other thoughts come up as you're thinking about this, because I know I think about this a lot, feel free to shoot us a message or reach out to Tom, and we can definitely, we appreciate your feedback and support.
As I said earlier, thank you for coming.
Yeah, thank you, Courtney and Jordan.
Okay. Expanded recycling collection services.
Yes, so I just thought I would give you a special update, a specific update about the conversation we just kind of wrapped up most recently. So make sure I look at my notes too before I start rambling. So based on the action the committee took on the 23rd was our last meeting. We had a vote, a 4-2 vote to not favorably recommend the exemption request that Ridwell had applied for through chapter 8.04. That code chapter required a favorable recommendation from the advisory committee in order for the board to consider and potentially grant any exemption. So effectively that action denied the exemption request that Ridwell had applied for in May. So the county has notified Ridwell of the effective denial of that application, of that exemption request, and based on the fact that they are no longer pursuing or in moving through a process that could potentially lead to compliance, the county has asked that they cease collection services by October 31st, 2021. So that's the end of this month. We haven't received an official response from Ridwell, but we are anticipating we will get some sort of response from them. So that's kind of where the action is pursuant to the decision made by the committee last month. We also responded to the memo that the Washington County Hauler Association had sent to staff and the committee and also the Board of Commissioners earlier this year, proposing that the Haulers Association would be happy to work with the county to develop an expanded services option proposal. And so we are actually planning to meet with the Haulers Association this coming Monday to really begin that conversation in earnest, to try to work through what does an expanded recycling service program within the certificate under the regulatory authority of the county look like, and how would that be structured. We are trying to move with some urgency. We did hear from a lot of community members that they were very interested and they really valued the program and they want to have an opportunity to have their materials like the films and those other things that Ridwell had been collecting to be collected. So we don't want to sit on it, and so we want to act with urgency and kind of move through the process as quickly as we can. We are looking for more information and we're working with the haulers to really answer some key questions. Some of those questions might include what Materials should be included in the program. We do have a template of what Ridwell was collecting. That doesn't mean that's what should be collected or all of what should be collected. Where there's some specific questions about styrofoam in particular, and whether it actually pencils out on LCA analysis, and what's the cost of transporting that really bulky material to a central collection point. So those are some questions we have. We also want to make sure that anything that we include in an expanded recycling program has available and responsible markets for it to be sent to. So a concern, if there's a sketchy market or if it's an overseas market, we would want to think twice before standing up a program and collecting that material from our community members to send it to somewhere where we're really not confident it's going to be managed responsibly. So it's really important for us. We need to talk about cost estimates. So we're talking about labor costs and equipment that might be used, if admin and overhead costs that might come from the solid waste collection system, processing fees, where would the material go and what would be the fees, and how much is Vinod going to charge us to take it? I'm just kidding. Maybe methods for ensuring that the program does not impact base services. It's really, I think, an important thing for staff as we're working through this. We want to make sure that any expanded recycling services programs inside the certificate don't become subsidized by the base rate. We don't want the base rate payers to have to pay an extra couple bucks a month. So 10-15% of the customer base can take advantage of a cheaper expanded recycling services program. We really think it should pay for itself and not be subsidized. Also, kind of service model options. What are the collection frequencies? What's the method of collection? Is it going to be on call or scheduled? Is it going to be offered urban or rural or both, or just urban? And then, so those are kind of the questions we're going to be playing around with the haulers, kind of pitching back and forth, and hopefully we will be working towards a proposal that would come back to be kind of evaluated and get some feedback from the advisory committee on thoughts on that. Before anything goes forward, it would require a rule and a rate change. And that would certainly be a process that comes through this committee formally for a recommendation and goes to the Board of Commissioners for approval. So that's kind of the glide path we're working on. We welcome any input along the way. I know you guys spend a lot of time with this issue, so it's something you all know really well now, and it gives us a unique opportunity to help shape it. I think there's we're excited about some of the opportunities for to use this as a model for reducing contamination and encouraging customers that are really interested in going above and beyond and recycling some of those materials not collected in the roll carts, to have an outlet and opportunity to do that inside the system. So any input you have right now or questions I can try to answer, we are happy to go through that and kind of involve you all as we go through the process. And welcome, Carl.
Carl sneaks in.
I snuck in.
I don't, this isn't really a question, but while this has been going on, I've sort of been looking at the markets that some of them are using. And so maybe down the road, if we have those conversations, like I could do a little more digging and kind of give some feedback that way.
Yeah, we'd really appreciate that, Vinod.
I have a question about, there was discussion through the whole process with Ridwell about, the haulers working with Ridwell, as for the collection. And so I am wondering, is that something that will still be pursued through the haulers if they're interested in doing that? Has anyone talked to Ridwell, or have there been any meetings with Ridwell and the haulers to date talking about this subject?
So I will answer it generally, and I see Beth unmuted and she probably can answer it more specifically. Generally, if a material or a program or an obligation is in the certificate system, the service providers have the opportunity to subcontract that to another service provider. So Washington County Dropbox is one of our great examples. 3, I think, haulers in Washington County, West Slope, Walker, and Evergreen, all subcontract their Dropbox collection franchise to Washington County Dropbox, which provides that Dropbox collection services on their behalf underneath the authority of their certificates. A lot of service providers, or most of them, also subcontract medical waste collection to Trilogy is the new subcontractor. It kind of changes every couple of years based on acquisitions and mergers in the medical waste industry, but those responsibilities are managed by the service provider, the certificate holder who subcontracts that part of their certificate out to a third-party service provider. So there is certainly a potential for that to happen, and I would actually probably encourage some subcontracting, whether it's to Ridwell or another subcontractor. I think it makes a lot of sense in a system like this to not have 9 different models and systems out there. And I think Beth maybe could speak to it a little bit better too, about if there's any conversations happening.
Sure. I think, Tom, you covered a lot of it, that option exists. I don't know how many haulers in Washington County will need to look toward Ridwell for added subcontract services or that kind of support. We have in varying jurisdictions. I mean, it's public in Gresham, which is a different jurisdiction, different situation. Haulers have reached out to Ridwell and are awaiting a response to a subcontracting relationship there. We have heard real concern about payment of franchise fees, and you know, I can't speak for Ridwell, so I probably should stop there. But we are open to those kinds of conversations in certain situations, but I can't speak to individual haulers in Washington County. As Tom indicated, they may or may not seek a subcontract arrangement. So that's kind of where we're at.
Thank you.
Yeah, there's a couple, fundamental pieces that we haven't, and again, like I said, we haven't had any of these really detailed conversations yet. But there's in staff's mind, there's a couple fundamental pieces of being inside of a system, inside of a regulatory system, and that includes in a certificate system, there's no competition. So the rate setting or the rates charged is something that the regulator steps in and manages on behalf of the market, because there's no open market to drive rate competition. So if we didn't set rates for the solid waste haulers, they could potentially charge $100 instead of $50, and they can't choose another service provider, and it doesn't work in a regulated monopoly without rate setting authority. So that's something that would have to be worked through and considered, and how that would trickle down to a program like this, and how does rate setting work, and how do we ensure rates are applied consistently across the system. If some service providers decide to subcontract and some do not, we need to make sure that the service and the rates are provided on par to each other across the county. And so those are some of the fundamental challenges with kind of bringing an open market model into a franchise system, but it's not insurmountable. So I think there's some good conversation, and the program, I would say that from what we've heard from community members is Ridwell has created a program that people like to use. So I would envision that if a program is created inside the certificate system, it's not radically different than what Ridwell is doing. And that maybe opens up the potential for subcontracting more than if it was a radically different program.
Okay. Have we had any requests for communication in the open communication time?
I have not seen anything. Are we wrapping up that agenda item? Is there any other questions, or didn't see anything?
I didn't see anything.
Okay. All right. I don't think we have anyone sign up, but we have 8 people in the attendee pool. So now is your opportunity to raise your hand if you would like to speak to the committee. All right, I don't see anything, but I do notice that Mr. Peters has joined us, and we gave an update early on in the meeting that we will have some new members joining the committee in being appointed by the board here in 2 weeks. And we just also wanted to say thank you very much to you, Carl, and we were able to say thank you to Beth for joining us on the advisory committee and your service to the community, and for sticking with us past your term that officially ended in March of this year. And it's been 7 months late, but we really appreciate you hanging out and sticking with us and your service.
Well,
And I want to add to that, that I have found the industry members to be a real source of wisdom and information for us. And I think we will miss that going forward. Thanks for hanging in there and joining us.
well, this is Carl, not Beth. Yeah, but yeah, no, thanks. It's always a pleasure to serve, and I take that responsibility seriously, and it's actually been a lot of fun. And I'm just glad to have an opportunity and to hopefully make a difference and help things move in a good direction. And yeah, thank you, and I appreciate everybody's patience with me, and it's been great. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, that being said, I think we've covered everything, and we have no people who want to make any more speeches. So thank you. We'll see you next time.
Thanks, Ken.
Thanks, Ken.
Thanks, everybody.
I just want to throw out
Bye.
something real quick for
Go.
your groups that James is doing. I know there's now the harder recycled materials get a little harder. James is doing a collection event at the Columbia warehouse or Columbia employee store over on Science Park on Saturday from 10 to 12:30. So if you
This coming Saturday?
yeah, this coming Saturday.
Thanks, Vinod.
Yep.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, everyone. The recording will
Bye.
be posted within 7 days.
Have a good night.